Oh, what a glorious morning it was at the Vaelthran Empire's most prestigious military academy on Korthax Prime. The triple suns cast their amber light through the crystalline dome of the training facility, where Commander Threx Val stood before his newest batch of recruits. Now, let me tell you about Threx Val, 8 feet of pure, arrogant muscle wrapped in scales that could deflect plasma rounds, eaten with 4 arms that had crushed more skulls than a meteor shower crushes asteroids. Welcome, warriors of the galaxy, Threx Val's voice boomed across the assembly hall, each word dripping with the kind of superiority that only comes from 5 centuries of military dominance. Today you begin your transformation into instruments of the Empire's will. The recruits stood at attention well, most of them did. There was Gorvak, the Bruthan warrior whose biceps were literally larger than some small moons. His rocky hide gleamed under the artificial lights as he flexed unconsciously, probably calculating how many enemies he could crush before breakfast. Next to him, Zella the hexapod tactician balanced gracefully on her 6 arms, her compound eyes scanning the room with the precision of a targeting computer. And floating nearby, Nimbus the energy being pulsed with barely contained power, crackling with electricity that could fry a battleship's main computer. Then came the entertainment. The massive doors at the back of the hall groaned open, and in stumbled what could only be described as the galaxy's most pathetic excuse for a warrior. Marcus Kane, they called him. A human. 5.5 feet of pale, soft flesh wrapped in a uniform that looked like it had been slept in, fought in, and possibly used as a napkin. His brown hair stuck up at odd angles, and was he actually eating something while trying to salute? Sorry, sir, Marcus mumbled through what appeared to be some kind of primitive food bar, crumbs falling from his mouth as he attempted to find his place in formation. Transport got delayed and I haven't eaten since yesterday. The silence that followed was so complete, you could have heard a quantum particle decay. Then, slowly, the snickering began. Gorvak's laugh sounded like boulders tumbling down a mountain. Zilla's 6 arms gestured in what her species considered the equivalent of pointing and laughing. Even Nimbus flickered with what could only be described as electrical amusement. Behold, Threx Val announced, his voice thick with sarcasm, humanity's finest contribution to our glorious military machine. Marcus looked around, apparently oblivious to the fact that he was being sized up like a particularly unimpressive appetizer. He raised his hand, still chewing. Excuse me, Commander, sir. Where exactly do I put my stuff? And also, is there a cafeteria? Because this energy bar tastes like recycled spaceship fuel. More laughter erupted from the assembled cadets. Gorvak actually slapped his knee, which made a sound like a small earthquake. Look at the tiny pink thing, he rumbled in his native tongue, though the universal translator made sure everyone understood. It's worried about food when it should be worried about survival. Zilla clicked her mandibles in amusement. I've seen combat drones with more intimidating presence. What's it even made of? Soft tissue, and what's that liquid leaking from its optical sensors? Those are called tears. Nimbus crackled with static-filled laughter. A biological response to emotional distress. How delightfully primitive. Commander Threx Val raised one of his 4 hands, and the laughter died instantly. His compound eyes fixed on Marcus with the kind of look typically reserved for particularly stubborn stains. Cadet Kane, isn't it? Yes, I remember your file. Barely passed the physical requirements, and by barely I mean the recruitment officer must have been having a particularly generous day. He gestured toward a side door with one of his secondary arms. Your quarters are in Section C, Level 7. The janitor's closet has been converted for your specific needs. As for duties, well. Threx Val's mandibles clicked in what his species considered a smile, though it looked more like a predator baring its teeth. I think we'll start you with something more suited to your talents. Cafeteria duty, cleaning protocols, and general maintenance. After all, every great military machine needs someone to keep the floors clean. Marcus nodded enthusiastically, apparently missing the insult entirely. Sounds great. Do I get access to the kitchen? Because I make a mean scrambled egg substitute, and I've got some ideas about improving nutritional efficiency that might. Dismissed, Threx Val interrupted, his voice carrying the weight of someone who had just witnessed the most anticlimactic recruitment in galactic history. Oh, the following weeks were absolutely delicious if you happened to enjoy watching what could only be described as a cosmic joke unfold in slow motion. The Vaelthran Academy's training regimen was designed to forge the galaxy's deadliest warriors, and Marcus Kane was, well, let's just say he was providing everyone with endless entertainment. Take combat training, for instance. While Gorvak could punch through reinforced titanium plates like they were made of paper, Marcus couldn't even activate his training sword properly. The plasma blade flickered on and off like a dying light bulb, and during his first sparring match, he actually tripped over his own feet and somehow managed to tangle himself in the safety netting. The instructors had to call maintenance to cut him free. 10 credits says the pink thing quits before the week is out. Zilla chittered to her fellow cadets as they watched Marcus attempt the obstacle course. He was currently hanging upside down from a rope, spinning slowly while asking anyone if this was supposed to happen. "You're being generous," Nimbus crackled with static amusement. "I give him 3 days. Look at him, he's actually talking to that cleaning droid." And indeed, Marcus was having what appeared to be a deep philosophical conversation with Unit 247, one of the maintenance droids. "So you're telling me you've been mopping this same hallway for 15 years? Marcus was saying, his voice filled with genuine concern. "That must get pretty boring. Have you ever thought about adding some music to your routine? Maybe a little dance move here and there?" The droid's optical sensors flickered in what might have been confusion, but Marcus seemed to take this as encouragement. Within days, he had somehow convinced half the maintenance staff to synchronize their cleaning patterns, turning mundane janitorial work into what he called efficiency choreography. The sight of battle droids waxing floors in perfect formation while humming human melodies was, well, it was disturbing on multiple levels. Commander Threx Val watched this spectacle with the kind of fascination typically reserved for studying particularly bizarre alien parasites. "The creature appears to be forming emotional attachments with mechanical units," he noted to his aide. "Perhaps its primitive brain cannot distinguish between living and artificial entities." But the real entertainment was yet to come. During weapons training, Marcus somehow managed to set himself on fire twice, in the same day. The first time could be chalked up to inexperience, but the second time he was literally just standing there, holding a plasma rifle that wasn't even activated. The physics instructors spent 3 hours trying to figure out how he'd managed it. 50 credits says he doesn't make it through basic training, Gorvak rumbled, his massive frame shaking with laughter as Marcus tried to figure out which end of a concussion grenade was the dangerous one. 100 credits says he gets himself killed before they can kick him out, added Zilla, her 6 arms gesturing dismissively. "Attention, cadets," Threx Val announced, his 4 arms spread wide in a gesture of supreme authority. "The time has come to separate the true warriors from the pretenders." His gaze lingered meaningfully on Marcus, who was currently trying to untangle himself from a piece of rope he'd somehow managed to tie around his own ankle. "Your final examination will take place in the Nightmare Preserve," Threx Val continued, savoring the way several cadets visibly paled. "For those of you unfamiliar with this particular training ground, allow me to educate you. The Preserve is home to Shadowmaw, the apex predator of Cortex Prime, 12 feet of pure hunting perfection, capable of optical camouflage, equipped with claws that can slice through battle armor like tissue paper, and possessed of an intelligence that has allowed it to kill every single elite warrior we've sent against it over the past century." The training hall fell silent except for the sound of Marcus trying to whistle and failing spectacularly. Even his attempts at making noise were disappointing. "The standard protocol," Threx Val announced, "is to send teams of 5 highly trained warriors into the Preserve. The survival rate is, well, let's call it statistically insignificant. However, I've decided to make a special exception for our human friend here. Every optical sensor, compound eye, and energy field in the room focused on Marcus, who had finally freed himself from the rope and was now examining his bootlaces with the intense concentration of someone solving the mysteries of the universe. "Cadet Kane will be going in alone," Threxval announced, his mandibles clicking with barely contained glee. After all, we wouldn't want him to be a liability to any actual warriors. The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of Gorvak choking on his own laughter. "Alone?" The Bruthan warrior managed between fits of amusement. "Commander, shouldn't we at least give him a sporting chance? Maybe a head start? Or perhaps a really good last meal?" "Oh, I'm sure he'll provide Shadowmaw with an adequate snack," Zilla added, her compound eyes glittering with malicious humor. "Though I doubt it will be very filling." Marcus looked up from his bootlaces, apparently having caught the tail end of the conversation. "Wait, did someone mention food? Because I've been thinking about the nutritional requirements for extended field operations, and I've got some theories about protein synthesis that might interest you." The Academy's observation deck had never seen such a crowd. Every cadet, instructor, and maintenance worker who could squeeze into the viewing area had gathered to witness what promised to be the shortest, most anticlimactic final exam in galactic history. The massive holographic displays showed multiple angles of the Nightmare Preserve, a sprawling wilderness of twisted trees, jagged rocks, and shadows that seemed to move independently of any light source. "Current betting odds," announced Zella, her 6 arms working multiple data tablets simultaneously, show a consensus survival time of 8 minutes and 37 seconds. Though personally I think that's optimistic. Gorvak's rocky laugh rumbled through the observation deck. "I've got 50 credits on less than 5 minutes. Look at his equipment loadout, it's pathetic even by human standards." And indeed, Marcus's gear was, well, let's call it minimalist. While elite warriors typically entered the preserve with plasma weapons, energy shields, and enough technological support to outfit a small starship, Marcus had been issued standard survival equipment, a basic shelter kit, water purification tablets, some emergency rations, and was that a box of matches? Actual, primitive, combustible matches? "Oh, this is rich," Nimbus crackled with electric amusement. The creature brought fire-starting sticks. "What's next? Sharpened rocks? Cave paintings?" Commander Threxval stood at the center of the observation deck, his 4 arms folded in a gesture of supreme satisfaction. "Gentlemen, ladies, and energy beings, witness the moment when humanity's delusions of adequacy meet reality's harsh correction." The transport dropped Marcus at the preserve's edge, and the tracking began immediately. The displays showed his biometric readings, heart rate elevated but stable, brain activity patterns that the computers couldn't quite categorize, and movement that could only be described as erratic at best. Is he walking in circles?" asked one of the junior instructors, squinting at the tactical display. "Worse," Zella chittered with glee. "He's talking to himself again. Look at the audio pickup." Indeed, Marcus's voice crackled through the speakers, though his words were difficult to make out through the interference. Something about checking the feng shui and establishing a perimeter, whatever those primitive concepts meant. For the first hour, everything proceeded exactly as expected. Marcus wandered apparently aimlessly through the outer sections of the preserve, stopping occasionally to examine plants, poke at the ground with sticks. And was he actually tasting things? The audience's laughter reached new heights when he spent 10 minutes apparently having a conversation with a tree. "The poor creature's already lost its mind," Threxval observed with clinical detachment. "Isolation-induced psychosis is setting in faster than anticipated." But then something unexpected happened. A pack of thornhounds, lesser predators about the size of Terran wolves, but with crystalline spikes instead of fur, picked up Marcus's scent. These creatures had killed dozens of warriors over the years, their pack-hunting tactics and razor-sharp projectiles making them a formidable threat even to seasoned fighters. The observation deck fell silent as the predators closed in on what should have been an easy meal. Marcus, however, did something that made every military strategist in the room question their understanding of basic survival tactics. Instead of running, instead of fighting, instead of even trying to hide, he started a fire. Not just any fire. A big, smoky, absolutely primitive fire that sent plumes of acrid smoke billowing through the forest canopy. Then, while the Thornhounds were still processing this unexpected development, Marcus began making noise. Loud, obnoxious, completely non-threatening noise that sounded like was he singing? The Thornhounds, creatures whose hunting instincts had been honed by millions of years of evolution, suddenly found themselves facing something their genetic programming had no protocol for, a prey animal that was acting like the world's most confident apex predator. The pack hesitated, their crystalline spikes retracting slightly as they tried to process what they were seeing. Marcus, apparently oblivious to the fact that he was supposed to be terrified, continued his bizarre performance. He'd somehow rigged up a series of reflective surfaces around his fire pieces of his survival kit's metallic components that now caught and amplified the flames, creating dancing patterns of light that seemed to mesmerize the predators. "He's using psychological warfare," whispered one of the tactical instructors, her voice filled with disbelief, "against creatures that shouldn't even be capable of psychological manipulation." But it got stranger. Marcus had taken some of his emergency rations and scattered them in a deliberate pattern around his campsite, not randomly, but in a specific configuration that seemed to create a sort of maze. When the Thornhounds finally worked up the courage to investigate, they found themselves having to navigate through a puzzle that somehow turned their own pack instincts against them. "Look at the movement patterns," Zilla said, her earlier confidence now replaced by genuine confusion. "They're not hunting anymore. They're problem-solving." The strangest part was Marcus's commentary, which the audio pickups caught in crystal clarity. "Come on, guys, it's like a treasure hunt. The good stuff's in the middle, but you've got to work together to get there. No, don't push your buddy out of the way. Teamwork makes the dream work, right?" Commander Threxval's mandibles clicked nervously. "The creature appears to be training them. This is highly irregular." What happened next defied every predator-prey relationship in the known galaxy. The Thornhounds, instead of attacking, began working together to solve Marcus's improvised puzzle. They moved in coordinated groups, communicating with soft chirps instead of their usual hunting howls, and when they finally reached the center where Marcus had placed the food rewards, they actually shared. "Impossible," Gorvak muttered, his rocky hide shifting with agitation. Thornhounds are territorial pack hunters. They don't cooperate with other species. They certainly don't get domesticated by random prey animals. But domesticated they were. Within 2 hours, Marcus had somehow turned a pack of deadly predators into what could only be described as enthusiastic participants in some sort of wilderness cooperation exercise. They were bringing him sticks for his fire, alerting him to water sources, and was that one of them actually playing fetch? The observation deck had gone completely silent. The betting pools were forgotten. Every military mind in the room was trying to process what they were witnessing. A soft, weak, supposedly inferior human who had just accomplished something that elite warriors with centuries of training had never even attempted. The atmosphere in the observation deck shifted from confused interest to absolute terror when the proximity alarms began wailing. Every display screen flashed red as the Academy's most sophisticated sensors detected what they'd all been waiting for. Shadowmaw was moving. Thermal signature approaching Marcus's position, announced the tactical officer, his voice tight with nervous excitement. Estimated time to contact, 3 minutes. Commander Threxval leaned forward, all 4 of his arms gripping the observation rail. "Finally, the entertainment portion of our evening is about to begin." But the entertainment they expected, well, let's just say reality had other plans. Shadowmaw materialized from the forest like a nightmare-given form. 12 feet of pure, evolved death, its optical camouflage rippling as it moved through the undergrowth. The creature was beautiful in the way that only perfect killing machines can be, sleek black hide that seemed to absorb light, retractable claws the length of short swords, and compound eyes that could track a target's heartbeat from 100 meters away. The Academy's recording equipment captured every terrifying detail as the apex predator approached Marcus's campsite. This was the moment everyone had been waiting for, the inevitable, brutal, and mercifully quick end to humanity's most embarrassing military recruitment mistake. Marcus looked up from his fire, where he'd been roasting something that smelled suspiciously like the local equivalent of marshmallows. He saw Shadowmaw, and every observer in the academy held their breath, waiting for the screaming to begin. Instead, Marcus did something that caused the observation deck's collective intelligence to suffer what could only be described as a system-wide crash. He sat down. Not fell down in terror, not collapsed from shock, not even stumbled backward in fear. He deliberately, calmly, sat down cross-legged next to his fire and said, "Oh, hey there, big guy. You're even more impressive in person than the pictures suggested." The silence in the observation deck was so complete that you could have heard a photon decay. Every alien mind present was trying to process what they'd just witnessed, a prey animal greeting the galaxy's most feared predator like they were old friends meeting for coffee, as he completely lost his mind. Zella whispered, her 6 arms trembling with disbelief. Terror-induced psychosis, Nimbus crackled quietly. The poor creature's brain has simply shut down. But Marcus continued talking, his voice carrying clearly through the audio pickups. "You know, I've been reading about you in the Academy databases. Apparently, you've been living out here alone for what, 2 centuries? That's got to be rough. I mean, I've been at this academy for 3 weeks and I'm already going stir-crazy from the lack of decent conversation." Shadowmaw, who had been preparing to deliver what should have been a killing strike, found itself in the unprecedented position of listening to potential prey analyze its emotional state. The creature's camouflage flickered with what might have been confusion. Marcus reached into his pack and pulled out one of his emergency rations. "I don't suppose you're hungry? I know it's not much, but I've learned that sharing food is usually a good way to start any relationship. Even made friends with the cleaning droids this way." He tossed the ration package toward Shadowmaw, not in a threatening gesture, but in the casual way someone might offer a treat to a neighborhood dog. The apex predator stared at the offering like it contained either explosives or the secrets of the universe. "The creature is attempting to feed Shadowmaw," the tactical officer announced, his voice breaking slightly. "This behavior is not in our databases." What happened next made every military theorist in the Academy question everything they thought they knew about predator-prey relationships. Shadowmaw, the perfect killing machine that had slaughtered elite warriors without hesitation, cautiously approached the offered food, its massive head lowered, compound eyes fixed on Marcus, waiting for the trick, the trap, the inevitable betrayal that its instincts insisted must be coming. But Marcus just sat there, poking at his fire with a stick and continuing his one-sided conversation. "You know what I think? I think you're probably pretty lonely out here. I mean, everyone who comes to visit you is either trying to kill you or trying to prove how tough they are. That's got to get old after a while, right?" Shadowmaw's optical camouflage flickered again, and this time the observers could see something that defied every piece of research ever conducted on the creature, curiosity. And the apex predator was actually listening. Back home on Earth, Marcus continued, apparently unaware that he was rewriting xenobiology textbooks in real time. "We've got this saying, it's lonely at the top. I'm guessing that when you're literally the apex predator of an entire planet, the view from the top gets pretty isolated.